What is going on, ladies, gentlemen, and those who sexually identify as? It is your GPC analyst, Trev, here, and I am very excited to be bringing you guys the second match of the week for week 2, and this match is going to be against Bob, also known as Call Me 911, the two-time GPC champion, coach of the Camber Zygarden. Again, if I said that wrong, sue me. And Uzi Gunner and of the Bangalore Wash. Now, just looking up at the matchup, Mamoswine for Bob looks very, very threatening, as Uzi doesn't really have too terribly of a safe switch-in to it, as, you know, Suicune is there. However, you know, depending on what Suicune, we don't know what Suicune this is. If it's Crowcoon, then okay, yes, it's a safe switch-in, even to Bandit Mamoswine. But if it's more offensive, like the Suicune that Uzi brought in week 1, then it is not a switch-in to, like, a Life Orb Earthquake or a Bandit Earthquake. And really, Uzi only has, you know, if it is defensive Suicune, like Fizz Def Crowcoon, something like that, then he does actually have 2 decent switch-ins to Earthquake from even a Banded Mamoswine. But he's got to be aware that if the rocks go up, he really only has 1 safe switch-in, and that's into Tangrowth to an Earthquake. And even then, Banded Icicle Crash will do a ton. So he has to play very carefully around that Mamoswine, or else it will become a big threat. At the same time, Bob really needs to play around the Nidoqueen, because Bob really has no switch-ins, nothing to deal with Nidoqueen. No, he only has offensive checks to the Nidoqueen, not defensive checks. Mega Lopunny, if the Gourgeist gets weakened, or if it's like a sub-variant and Bob does not carry Seed Bomb, I believe Bob would carry Seed Bomb on Gourgeist because he does not want a sub-Lopunny on his hands. But Lopunny can also be a big problem, especially if it does get behind a sub before Mega Aerodactyl. You know, Aerodactyl is able to Mega Evolve, or if it's Jolly and able to outspeed the Mega or the Aerodactyl before it Mega Evolves, that could be a big problem. So yeah, Bob does not really have very good checks. He does not have defensive checks to the Nidoqueen, and you know, he does have a couple checks to the Mega Lop and an offensive check after it Mega Evolves. But you know, again, those two combined can possibly be very, very threatening to Bob. Scolipede is also a very, very key member on Bob's team, as that is also a threat to Uzi's team. So from what I see from this team preview, they both have 2 very big offensive threats to each other's team. So basically, who will be able to preserve those 2 offensive threats, or at least one of those offensive threats, in my mind, will win this game. But I've babbled enough. Let us get right into the second match of the week. So Bob is going to lead off with his Bronzong, as Uzi leads off with Bambi's mom, the Nidoqueen, gets off a Fire Blast. That reveals that is offensive Nidoqueen, as well as being a non-heat-proof Bronzong. So Bob wasn't trying to be tricky here. He wanted to guarantee live any hit, and you know, if it was Earth Power and it was a heat-proof Bronzong, that's not really, you know, a counter. So he was not heat-proof Bronzong. Here we do see the Mamoswine go for Earthquake. Now we can't really tell if that's, you know, just like a Focus Sash Mamoswine and possibly a non Fizz Def Suicune, or if that's Fizz Def Suicune and Banded Mamoswine. My bet would be on Fizz Def Suicune and Banded Mamoswine, because Banded Mamoswine is such a big threat to Uzi's team. We do see the Tangrowth come in and take a Will-O-Wisp as it goes for the knockoff on the Gourgeist. Revealing to be a Life Orb Tangrowth. Very interesting. Usually you see Assault Vest or Rocky Helmet. You very rarely actually see a offensive Tangrowth in League format. So that is very interesting to see. I'm personally very happy to see that, because I've run into so many Assault Vest Tangrowths myself that I kind of get tired of it. But we finally see an offensive Tangrowth here. And that knockoff does not do anything, because it is burned and it is also Mega Aerodactyl. So it does not have an item to be knocked off, technically. We do see Bob go into the Gorgeist as Uzi doubles out into the Mew, and he does not want to stay in here, so he's just going to go straight into Nidoqueen, as Bob does go for a Leech Seed. And even though Bob is down, he's weakened the, Nidoqueen drastically, and he still has his 2 offensive threats at full health, as well as Mega Aerodactyl at nearly full health as well. So we do see the Tyranitar come in, go for the crunch, does a decent chunk. That's either Scarf Tyranitar and like a Spadef Clefable, or possibly a Banded Tyranitar and a Fizdef Clefable. Also, we do see that is unaware, as it takes Sandstorm damage. That is very key to deal with a Crocoon or a Power Up Punch Lopunny, or a Dragon Dance Tyranitar. Again, it's probably Banded Tyranitar, but just in case it's like a Dragon Dance Tyranitar, you can never be too safe, or a setup Mew. So right here we see a Suicune versus a Gourgeist matchup. We see the Toxic from the Suicune. We see the Leech Seed from the Gourgeist. And honestly, if he can get rid of the Clefable, if Bob can get rid of the Clefable, weaken the Lopunny, and possibly even take out the Tyranitar as well. If he can get it down to just it being Mew, a weakened Tyranitar, Tangrowth, and Suicune, Bob has the possibility to possibly win with Clef if he's, Heal Bell, because the Suicune does have Toxic. So we do see the Mew go for a Psychic. Does a lot to Gourgeist. Unfortunately, the Gourgeist does miss the Leech Seed. Not the biggest deal in the world, but it's a decent deal. And we do see the Clefable go, come in and take a Psychic. Now, even though it's unaware, stat drops on your own Pokemon, on your unaware Pokemon, still count, or do not count, for the unaware. So you will actually still take more damage, even though you are unaware. And basically, if you didn't see the Sandstorm or, the burn, you do see Moonlight. Pretty much, not confirming that he was, that doesn't necessarily would confirm that he was unaware, because you do see some Moonlight Clefables to bait people and to think they're unaware. But, we see the burn damage, we see the Sandstorm damage, and we do see he has Moonlight. And Uzi takes this opportunity to just, go into Bambi's mom, the Nidoqueen, get off a powerful Sludge Wave. Bob does make a pretty decent play and go in for, kind of risky, because Mamoswine is a big threat to his team. And if it went for Earth Power, it would have been really low. He decides just to go for 2 EQs here against the Tangrowth and just die. He does take out the Tangrowth, however, and that is one thing that could possibly stop, that was the one thing that could possibly stop Banded Earthquake from Mamoswine, but unfortunately Mamoswine is also gone. But we do see the Scolipede here go for Protect, just in case this Tyranitar is Scarfed. As Scarfed Tyranitar, if Jolly would outspeed Jolly Scolipede. And we do see the Scolipede get the speed boost. He will go for the Mega Horn, Oko the Tyranitar, and Scolipede's looks sitting pretty here at +2 speed. However, Uzi's able to easily go into the Lop and, threaten it out, because Bob doesn't have anything to Oko the Lop. And so Uzi just goes straight for the return. Does half of the remaining Aerodactyl's health. And I'm assuming he's probably not Jolly Lopunny, and, as he switches out, because if he was Jolly Lopunny and outsped this Aerodactyl, he would have been easily able to outspeed the Aerodactyl and kill it. We do see that Uzi sacks his Nidoqueen and then goes in the Mew. Him sacking Nidoqueen is big, because now the Clefable is a definite win condition for Bob now that Nidoqueen is gone. And we do see the Taunt Aerodactyl, which is pretty key, as it prevents Mew from healing up and going for a Will-O-Wisp on the Aerodactyl, so it will take more damage. Now Bob has a choice. He can go to Scolipede or the Clefable here. He just chooses go straight into Scolipede. Misses a Mega Horn. Very unfortunate. If he would have been able to hit that Mega Horn, this Mew would have been dead. And I think Bob would have had this game wrapped up with Clefable from the very get-go. Because if he's not Calm Mind Clefable, then he could possibly still lose this game. But he is Calm Mind Clefable. He's the very rare set Calm Mind Heal Bell. Usually, unaware Clefables are like, if they do run Calm Mind, they don't really run Heal Bell, or they run Wish Protect. But he decided to run Moonlight just to have room over for the Heal Bell. So very, very ingenious strategy by Bob there. As the Lop just go for the Healing Wish. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that play myself, because Lop could have gotten a possible huge hit off on this. But, you know, he wanted to heal up his Suicune without having to go for rest. He does reveal Roar, so that means his full moveset is Rest, Roar, Toxic, and Scald. So last Mon Clefable versus last two Mons, Suicune and Mew. Bob does have the advantage of having Heal Bell. So, honestly, there's almost no way Bob can lose this game. The only way he could lose this game is that if that is a taunt Mew, and, you know, Bob, like, there's a play where he goes for, let's see, if there's a play where Bob does not go for the Heal Bell, as usually would go into Mew if it is indeed taunt Mew, then he cannot heal off the Toxic or heal off the damage, and in that case, Uzi would win. However, the way Uzi does not make a single switch into Mew, kind of spoilers, but he does not make a single switch into Mew this entire time, kind of tips off to the fact that he is indeed not taunt Mew. So, you know, maybe an oversight on Uzi's part not bringing taunt Mew against Bob, because it actually did, you know, taunt Mew was actually pretty helpful against the majority of Bob's team, like Gourgeist not being able to set up a Wisp or Leech Seed, Bronzong not being able to set up screens or rocks, Clefable not being able to set up at all or heal. But we do see Bob finally start to attack here. Goes for a Moonblast, does over half to the Suicune, and right here, you know, I'm just going to hit up on Flash because it's basically, the rest of the game is basically just Clefable setting up, and the game basically ends because Uzi has nothing to deal with a +3 Clefable with Heal Bell, and Bob is easily able just to set up to his heart's content as far as he needs to win. Uzi just missed the Toxic there. Does not matter at all. Again, Bob has Heal Bell. And Uzi cannot possibly burn up enough Heal Bells to win the game. Would just like to, you know, apologize for that. The audio on my Camtasia ended for a second. But yeah, the game's over. Bob, you know, you didn't really miss much. You missed about I don't know, 6 turns-ish. And Bob basically just, you know, killed the Suicune after setting up the +6, and then he killed the Mew with a couple of Moonblasts, or just one Moonblast, in fact. And yeah, that was the game. So, you know, let us get right into the stats for this game. And here we are, guys, back with the stats for this game. Now, as we can see, Clef and Mew statistically were the respective MVPs on their teams. Clef being the MVP statistically for the Camper Zygarden, and Mew being the statistic MVP for the Big Lawash. However, you could argue that, you know, Suicune, even though it didn't put up as good of stats as Mew, could be the MVP, as, you know, it was able to roar out the Clefable and basically meant that Clefable could not sweep Uzi until, you know, it was just last Mon. So Uzi could at least prevent Clefable from sweeping him unless it was any higher, or it couldn't have been more than one differential sweep by Clefable. Like, he couldn't have lost by more than 1-0 if he was to lose to Clefable like he did. However, on Bob's side, you really can't argue. Clef was pretty much the clear MVP, not only statistically like it shows, but, you know, if Bob had any other last Mon, he probably would have lost that game. But Clef being his last Mon against Mew and Suicune was able to easily take that game. And yeah, so, you know, the 1-0 victory in Bob's favor, as the Camber Zygarden do claim their first win of the season after losing week 1. And Uzi takes the loss first of the season after winning his week 1. I want to thank you guys for watching. Make sure to check out the GPC channel for other, check out this channel for other GPC related content like weekly recaps. Power rankings will probably be coming up sometime soon, hopefully. I don't do the power rankings. And also, if you want to check out the coaches involved, Uzi and Bob, go check them out. If you want to check out my own channel, that will also be in the link in the description. I want to thank all you wonderful GPC coaches, fans, other analysts for watching. This has been Trev signing out. Peace.